Okay, as you can see, we've actually mounted and glued all of our pieces together, and the fit's pretty nice, and I think once we get the paint on this thing, it's going to look pretty doggone good. Okay, you can see here that all the pieces have dried overnight, and I've come back in this morning and I've used a bristle brush and filled in the paint for all the trenches. Again, we are going to come back and use sponging later to kind of dress it up, make it look a little bit fancier. But as you can see, all the edges line up fairly nicely, and we're going to have a start of a good board here. Now, one of the things I have not done on this one is I haven't really put any texture to this, and the reason for that is that I plan on being able to store this thing flat. If I wanted to do things like put sand or grit or gravel or things like that on the actual board itself, when I got ready to stack the thing up, you would see that it would begin to tear up the bottom facing of the other side, the flip side, which is just going to be a smooth surface. Okay, I've gone through and completed the painting of the trenches, just using a stiff stipple brush and kind of a darker tone, kind of a brownish beige color, and have just done a real rough brush in. I'm going to come back now and use a sponge and begin to stipple and texturize, and then we'll come back and do a little bit of airbrushing at the very end just to kind of dress it up. The way I like to use a sponge is to actually use your paintbrush to bring some paint over to the sponge, just lightly, almost like a dry brush, and then just stipple it, rotating your wrist as you're making your marks, so that what you get is a very non-patterned effect. And we'll use a couple of different colors to do this, and it'll give us a real nice finish when we're done. Okay, I've finished all the stipple work on the board, and you can see I've added in some greens and a little bit of rust brown, and again in the trench area, which was kind of an earth gray, I've come through and added in some darker pure brown, just to give it the appearance of a lot of slog work and footwork, etc. Okay, in this final phase, what I've done is I've taken the stippled board and I've come back over to my workbench and set the whole thing up and took out my airbrush, and I've come back in and I've put in kind of a flat overcoat effect. You can see it gets rid of some of the hard edges from the stippling and kind of tones the whole thing out. Now, if you don't have an airbrush, I mean, first off, I'd highly encourage you to get one if you're a terrain builder, but you can also use a spray can, and I would just use the same color you used for the original basing. In my case, that's called cornmeal. That was the color that I used. And just from a distance about 1.5 to 2 feet, lightly overspray the work that you've done. And that'll give you your final board, and you can see it's nice and even and really a good textured terrain look, yet it's nice and flat, and it's going to store easily, and will also be real simple to set up in the future. I did add in one more feature I want to show you. This is the final effect of the board. I came back in and added some dark brown airbrushing around the actual trenches themselves, just to kind of highlight them and make them look a little bit more prolific in the actual gaming board. You can see here the final finished effect. I've included some particular terrain that I've built over the years. This is just generic packaging parts and pieces with some leftover tank parts from Imperial Guard armies and a little bit of Legos, etc. But and some scratch build stuff. But again, the overall effect of a totally handmade terrain system. It's very versatile. You can move the sections around and have a different experience every time you play. And this will hold up fairly well over the course of time. Now, eventually you're going to get some chip marks here and there on the edges of the foam pad. When that does happen, when you begin to see the corners begin to get a little bit worn out, real simple to come back in with a little bit of spackle or post paint and just touch up little areas that begin to show some of the pink foam through it. Other than that, I think you've got yourself a very easy to store environment for gaming, and very inexpensive and a lot of fun to build. Hope you enjoyed this, and take care. Good war games. Bye-bye.